Gentlemen, welcome back to the shop, coming to you live in hyper stereo. We got the dingus on the flapper. Where are we to? My old cock. We're having a look at the new, well, not so new, M12 fuel on account of, this is in recent memory. We're going to have a look, see the difference between the fuel and just the regular. By the Jeezeless kids these days. I blame the parents. Listen. They're going to run around like heathens up the stair. We're going to stick them outside, 20 below or no. Excuse me. In keeping with the thematic theme of this lazy Sunday afternoon, we got them kids shimmed right up. Fear is the heart of love. As the wife told me to get you gone from underfoot, baby sugar, honey, darling, I aim to please. Stoopwaffle. Unless, of course, I'm shooting a thrill. Interesting discourse on the previous version of this. The turd hoarders generally seem to get quite a bit shorter time on account of, initially when these first came out, the boards were not conformally coated. That just means they weren't coated with a urethane or something inert, keep the big chunks of water out, and these would die. So Milwaukee added conformal coating to these, and they didn't die as quickly, but they still would get water in there and then seize up the bearings. So they seem to last okay, longer than I would have fingered anyway, even under duress. So the thing right off the hop that I noticed on this guy, and that's time, is why it's so Jeezeless big. It's brushless, and yet it's even larger than its brushed cousin. Why is that? Quite a bit heavier it feels in the hand as well. Let's weigh it. There's the old one. A little less than a kilo. There's the new one. Yeah, 1,400 grams. Substantially heavier for a brushless unit. That doesn't really make sense because, well, there's so much more energy, power dense, those brushless motors than the brushed motors. It's surprising that it would be heavier. I think that battery's dead. There we go. Now we're cooking with bunker. Getting into the half clamshell, look, you can see we've reached peak greebling, and we're coming down the backside of her into a simpler aesthetic. It's less like a kid's toy and starting to look more like a tool, what your father would use. So one thing about this PA6, they've changed quite plainly. We ran into this on the previous Milwaukee teardown on a new one. I can't remember what it was, but it was something. They're getting more into the orange of this red. It's not a nice deep red like it used to be. They must have changed plastic suppliers. Dyes are hard to hit on the mark, so they've changed it a little bit, and it is going into a more orangey color. Having done so many times in the past, I'm going to refrain from an impassioned demagoguery of mass of the ass versus angle of the dangle. In a lot of cases, bigger is better, but we all know that in other cases, bigger is not better. And depending on what you are doing with this tool, for instance, you're cutting rafters overhead, or you're, your ankle's deep in minor piss and you're working under your ears, lighter a lot of times is going to get the job done a lot nicer, especially if you're overhead, you're working your traps and your deltoids and your, what do they call that, salmon belly? No, triceps. They work hard when you're working out of position, and this 40% increase in mass, that's a big deal over a 8, 10, 12-hour shift. For whatever reason, they've gone and taken a small little hacksaw, which is, I think, the perfect size just for doing little stuff, and made it just that much bigger, almost a pound in the difference. What is a pound between friends? Well, you can pound it for 12 hours and come back and report to me. See how it feels. Probably none too good. I wouldn't know. And we have lost a spring-a-thing. Won't be needing that. A copper spring-a-thing of all sorts. Here's the board, conformally coated, big copper heatsink on there. That's a nice feature. On the smaller board, of course, we didn't see that. We just saw the through-hole vias for cooling. However, different kind of switching here. In this case, we're taking DC from the battery, direct current, chopping it up into three-phase AC in pulses. And we need a lot of switch gear in order to do that. You can see the MOSFETs on here. Starting at the beginning where the pixies meet the load, we have some nickel, chrome. Nickel has kind of a gold to it. Chrome contacts, and we have lots of stiff elastic on there. Great to see. However, misapplied in this case just for, this is the temperature probe monitoring the temperature, and that's not the way to do that. All the stress goes right into this section here, so that's an easy fix. Just bring the elastic up a little further and then it doesn't break off right there. And we're going into a Defense switch, of course a Chinese manufacturer with a French name. We've seen these switches in just about everything Milwaukee. You see there's no snap action, just a mush, but it does need to break and make the entirety of the current. And then there'll be a potentiometer in there feeding back into the brain box. Interesting feature on the back side of the board, some heat sinking vias. And looking over here, that is the brain box. So why would they need high power vias on the brain box? Got to be something funny going on. And that is not an Atmel chip as the previous generation of Hacksaw had. It is a Texas Instruments, and it's a gate driver as well. So this is spun up specifically for three-phase motor control. There's some processing power in here, but it's also a gate driver, a Hall effect sensor, direct input, as well as some other doodads for driving three-phase motors, brushless DC motors. Here we have the H bridges in 4, so each little MOSFET is one of the legs of the H bridge, and then the 3 phases across here. If you would focus, you fuck. In earlier iterations of the brushless driver board, we would see big MOSFETs through hole soldered in. These are surface mount. Very little chance you're going to be able to fix that if one of these lets out the smoke show and you get a shit stain. You'll be able to see which one blows up. Very likely you probably blow up some of these protection diodes, and then one of these guys would blow. I'm guessing, having seen a number of these fail, it's generally something to do with either one of these diodes here or one of these MOSFETs. Nothing for it really but to replace the board. However, having a look at it, it's not really all that user serviceable. Everything's real tight wires and soldered right in place. More than likely, if the board fries, you're going to send this in for warranty. Bully old Sookie baby routine. So the motor housing now, very dimensionally stable. It is nylon with 50% glass fiber. Makes it very rigid. Of course, the more glass is in the compound, the harder it is on the mold. So the more expensive the part ends up, because you get fewer parts out of the mold. So, and I want to show you here the back bearing. Now this was a problem, in my opinion, a problem on the Makita drill, that it wasn't seated, the shaft wasn't sized properly. It was a loosey-goosey fit, and had some commenters comment that, no, that's okay because the thing needs to grow axially. No, in heat, yeah, maybe, but you don't want the shaft sliding on the inner race of the bearing, steel on steel. What you want is what the actual case is. It's not constrained axially in the housing itself, so it's free to move a little bit in this housing axially, not radially, but axially. Say axially one more time, motherfucker. So that's a good thing that it's on there good and proper. That means the fit is nice. This is a quite old design, as we see on the Hall effect board here. This is the back board, and it just measures the position of the rotor. Of course, permanent DC magnets in the rotor, very likely 4 of them. If we have a look with the magic viewing film here. Yeah, 1, 2, 4 permanent. Yeah, you can see them right in here. So this Hall effect board, lots of Celastic just to reduce the rattle trap effect. And hopefully screwed in. Yeah, there's a little screw there that I'm ruining my knife on. It's worth it for a screw. Anything for a screw, am I right? So one thing, these are sealed bearings, okay? And these spin very, very quickly. So generally we don't see sealed bearings on things that spin super, super quickly. These would have to be special seals in that they're very loosely fit on there so you don't get too much friction. Friction equals heat. You burn the bearing out prematurely. So these would have to be reasonably special bearings. And if we have a look at the designation here, focus, thank you. Almost got her trained up. 628 RSB. So I bet you if we look at that up, that would be a low friction seal, or a low running friction seal, a room to grow type deal. There are the field windings there, lots of copper in there. We see more Celastic over the Hall effect sensors just to keep the schmoo out of there. They pretty good attention to detail. Looking at this revision date, however, hasn't been updated in a long time, 2013. And we see, interestingly, the brushless DC tools used to be very, very expensive. And the difference now between the fuel and the regular is but $20 hairs, $30 hairs. So they're starting to come down in price for the brushless, which of course they're bound to do because they're probably, well, they're allegedly more efficient. Are they? Are they really? We'd need to test that out, but they sure seem a lot torqueier. Having had a gander inwards, outwards at the motor, we can see that most of the additional weight is in the gearbox, which is actually fan-fucking-tastic. On account of she's not long for this world, you stab her a few times in the wrong spot and stalls out. Strip the gears clean out of her. So what? There ain't nothing for it. If you want stronger gears, you gotta have more meat. There's no way around that. Ho 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 ho! Azzo. Now we see why it's so much heavier. There's 2 crown gears. And the 2 crown gears... How are the 2 crown gears working? What the fuck? It's not attached to nothing. Is that just a spare? They just give you a spare? What? What? This is interesting. Yet again, we got a mystery wrapped in an enigma covered in schmoo. We got the 2 crown gears here. They are equivalent. They are the same part. Metal injection molded in a mold, in a green mold, and then sintered. So metal basically sintered together. Same thing with this shaft part. It's been ground here, but it's hollow. And then we can see, well, it's been ground along here, but it's got the rounded over edges indicative of a metal injection molded part. And then the tool maker, what made the mold, yeah, looks like he went at it with a dull Bridgeport. Have a look at that. We got to get her out of the pub before the lights come on. Incident harsh light brings out all the flaws. You can see somebody went in there with a semi-dull 10mm end mill. Just went what for. Apparently good enough for the girls Milwaukee goes out with. Alright, now this is kind of a nut scratcher here. It makes you wonder what they were thinking, because they have the same part here, metal injection molded, on the obverse. Now, all this does is provide additional crank weight to keep that thing running smoothly. But if I had to go with this, what you could do is have a pin, what's longer, that engages both sides of these. That means that the pinion drives both crown gears, and both crown gears drive a little choo-choo shaft. It could just be that they've already got the weak link, what breaks, and I don't know. You could also use this, I guess, to locate this pinion gear so that it can't pop up and over a gear tooth, in the event of a full stall. I really don't see the point. I'm not seeing the point. unless they had a longer shaft in here and the shaft engaged both of these, locked these together, and the pinion was sandwiched together, that would make sense to me. But essentially all it's doing in this case is adding additional crank weight to smooth that out. All right, we had a goodly look at her. She gave up all her secrets, we can safely say. Well, safely ask you me, what is going to go tits up here pronto? I think the first thing to go wrong, probably the MOSFETs in the driver board probably blow up, give you a shit stain, and no worky. The other thing what's going to go wrong long term is strip out these gears. It mightn't be strong enough. You never know. Other thing, depending on your disposition, if you're working overhead drywall and so forth, nasty bits get in here, waller that right out. But here's the beauty. Okay, so guys would enjoy these videos. They buy me a beer. There's so much fucking beer there I couldn't ever drink it all. So we put that back into the channel. We do the Town Pump CNC, trying to get guys' ideas off the ground. Also the tool reviews. Once you take a suck of that sweet corporate salve, it all turns to shit. And you can see it in Corpo Shill videos. You can't even, the guys can't even post. Name your name brand. Okay, they do a review. They can't even post the video until it gets approved by the brand. Fuck that fucking noise. So thank you, patrons, for keeping us independent. Now, here's the other part of that is they can't do what we do. And here is what we're going to do. I'm going to get this back together, give her a quick test out. But I want you, if you're a pro, say a turd herder, somebody's going to give this a real hot supper, make her last maybe 6 months or 4, deader, quick, fast, in a hurry, and then we'll take her apart, see what didn't work, see what could be improved. So, townpumpcnc@gmail.com. If you want me, if you got the M12 baterias and so forth, you want to test this out for the community. And we'll get it back here, take her apart, see what blew up. Thank you very much for joining me for a chortle and a chuckle here in the shop, and keep your dick in a vice.